morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Walter. Walter and I got a chance to sit and talk a little bit before the Clipper game on the 31st of December. Commiserate a little bit about how our team's been playing and what's happened to our ball club. And in, that particular point, we were looking to start making changes in our ball club to not to end our efforts for the season, but to change our efforts for the season. We felt like we weren't competitive, we weren't playing with the kind of energy that we had to have, and the necessity to move forward with our plans was quite evident, I think, at that time. So we've done that, and we're stepping out. We've got some players that'll come in with 10-day contracts. We'll look at players in the process. We'll assess our talent that we have. Some point in November, I talked a little bit about learning, beginners and the beginner mind, and about our learners and our learning capabilities. And I felt like we really didn't adjust as quickly as we'd hoped to. I think a lot of it focus was contributed to the amount of negativity around so-called triangle offense, which is much bigger than it seems. People like to put a lot more emphasis on it than is necessary. It's just an offensive system, and as a result, I thought it really stilted our guys' acceptability to being the learners that I wanted them to be. I'm very proud of the way Derrick has held himself together during this. It's not easy to go through what he's gone through. He's done a really terrific job and continued to coach and teach, and I think that's what we were looking for. And so we think we're moving forward in that regard. I'll open this a little for questions at this time, and have your say.
How is the plan changed now, or was this all still part of the plan? What's happening?
Well, it wasn't part of a short-term plan. It was a long-term plan, and I think that's something that we knew we were going to do. As we were talking about changing the culture of this ball club, we knew that we were going to have to look forward and anticipate bringing in new players and changing some of the face of our team. We had, I think, 6 new ball players this year on this team, so there's a big change. We didn't want to go through as many changes next year, but it looks like we're going to have to anyway.
Phil, when before the season started, you had said you thought this team could compete for a playoff spot. What has changed between then and now, and could you have envisioned the worst start in franchise history?
Well, I guess I could say, it was just 3 short weeks ago, or maybe even less, that Detroit was in the same record we had, and now they're fighting for a playoff spot. So, I mean, in the East, we looked at teams that were under 500 that could compete. It wasn't really a big challenge, a challenge I thought this team was capable of. They obviously weren't. A lot of the games that we played competitively, the first 25 games of the season, we couldn't find a way to win. I think Derrick told me there were 15 games in that span of time that we were within 5 points in the last 2 minutes of a ball game and weren't able to win. So there was something going on there that didn't click towards making the winning a necessary or a possibility for us. So when that happens, losing becomes paramount in their minds, and I think I spoke to that about a month ago when I said I was concerned about a loser's mentality that might be forming with this team, and it certainly is embedded right now.
Phil, speaking about that loser's mentality, I know you've talked about establishing a culture here and a way of doing things. How much does 5-34 set that back for now and for when you're doing recruiting this summer, for trying to convince guys to come be a part of this?
Well, I think it's a good question, Steve, because I think that we're all worried about the fact that money's not going to just be able to buy you necessary talent. You're going to have places where people want to come and play and want to. But I do think that the New York situation holds a high regard in players and agents that have contacted us. We have no lack of agents that are contacting us for their players, and we still think that we have a really good chance to develop a team. Simply because we're having a very difficult year doesn't mean that that's gone awry, I think. However, having, Carmelo as, a lead force, a person that is interested in, the advancement of our team, and a guy who's been, literally hampered this year by his physical setbacks, it really helps us, I think, because we know that he's going to have a better year. He's going to do, recovery's going to be much better for him next year, and there's a guy here in place that, is ready to play and is a competitive player.
Phil, on the Tyson trade, you had mentioned on Twitter that you feel like there's no need to judge a trade immediately. You look down the road to see its ultimate impact.
Right.
We're sitting here now. Tyson's playing pretty well in Dallas. The guys who came here, Sam's not here.
Right.
Jose isn't playing probably to how you thought he would be. Are you taking the longer view here, maybe thinking that, the guys you drafted will pan out well? How do you view it?
We got Shane and Clay Anthony early, in that trade. And, that was a big part of it, is to have a draft pick that was a high draft pick that we could have to bring some youth in. And, we still think that that's a good possibility. Jose's going to play better. I think he's going to, recover and, have a substantial increase in his capabilities as the season goes on. But I'm sure he's disappointed as we are at his start, at his first half of the season.
Phil, you mentioned you think Derrick's doing a very good job. In what way do you think he's doing a good job? And is it still tough for him as a rookie coach to handle this type of losing situation?
It's tough for anybody. I think that Derrick hasn't been part of this in any part of his career that I know of. College, he had a down year in college that I know of 1 year, coaching change, etc. NBA, I know the times that the Lakers were all winning seasons, etc. He went to San Antonio. He went to Utah and to Golden State for a short year in between coming back to the Lakers. So they've all been positive experiences, and you just don't anticipate that as a coach or as a player that you're going to be part of something like has happened to this team. So the thing that's remarkable about it is that he's consistent about his coaching. He's patient with the players. He hasn't lost his temperament that I think is very much part of who he is. The resolve and the character is stable. The fact that he's optimistic is really important. And I think that he sees the future goals. And I think that's something that's very difficult for a coach where immediacy is so important. The next game you want to win. And he sees the long-term goals that we have.
You mentioned Phil Carmelo with the injuries. Where do you stand on how much more he should play, whether you want him out there, whether it's better if he just didn't, keep trying at this point?
That, has to be up to him. And I think for Melo, the last resort is surgery, as it should be for anybody. Surgery, is basically to repair and to correct. And he's got a situation that could exacerbate it, could get difficult, could be better with his surgery, but he wants to really try it again and see where he's going to be after. The next period of time we'll assess that, and we'll sit down and talk to him about it. I know the All-Star game is important for him down the road in February. I know this trip to London would be important for him to play. He sees possibilities of helping the team get back and be better. He questions his leadership role and his part in all this, I know, and we want to reassure him on that regard that we believe help is on the way and he's going to have support.
Phil, you were just saying that there's a level of immediacy just based on how poorly things have gone so far. This franchise hasn't been particularly patient all the time with rookies, first, second-year players, and a lot of times they were trying to just move forward because of the immediacy that's felt in this city. How do you plan to go about changing the developmental role with a lot of these young players, and is that possible with where you guys are at right now?
Well, there are two things that I want to address in that regard. One is our fans, that we're really, this is a mea culpa. You know, I take responsibility for it, and the fans, you know, I want them to leave Derrick alone in this regard. He's doing the best job possible, and it's not his fault. We're going through this period of time, and for some of the people that have been fans of this team, have told me many times that there's been this impression that maybe the team should blow it up and should start over again, and it's never happened. It's always been going after the next big star, you know, Antonio McDyess, and you know, so forth and so on. And we all know that history of the Knicks in the past. I was there when we went out and got Spencer Haywood, and then we went out and got Bob McAdoo, and we kept searching for the big star to change our fortunes, which has never happened in the last 45 years or so. So the reality is that this is probably the best way to go about the business, and you know, to begin and to restart and to do it the right way, and put it together in a way that really makes sense, instead of bringing dominant people in to try and fit into this jigsaw puzzle, makes it pretty difficult. So we hope we're on the right track, even though this isn't the track we anticipated.
Phil, you mentioned about Derrick hasn't been through this kind of stuff. Well, you haven't been through it for a very long time, maybe Piscataway, I don't know. But how tough has it been for you? How embarrassing is it for you personally?
Well, you know, you try not to be personally attached to this. This is something that you have to be, but you know, try not to be in that regard. I've lost some sleep about it. I wake up in the night thinking about how I can help this team out, thinking about what's different and what we can do that could be different. We felt like we've, you know, provided as much support as we can, psychologically, environmental, medically, as we can possibly do, and a lot of things haven't changed. You know, at some period of time when you look down the bench and you see $60 million in players sitting on the bench without their uniform on, you really feel badly for the team and badly for our fans. The other part about it is that Jim Dolan has been very supportive in this process, and from that standpoint, it gives me the ability to relax and be patient and understand that, you know, I have support to go forward the way I see fit, and so that's really good. The other thing is it's given our scouting staff and our kids that look at draft players and future free agents a big spark in their life. They're now very attentive.
Phil, when you look at, I guess you talk about the $60 million on the bench with injuries, some of those guys are obviously not going to be here next year. How, I guess, do you approach this next month to the deadline? Is that something that you'd be open to moving guys now, or are you intent on waiting to free agency?
Well, I just think that no one should be surprised at what we do from here on out. You know, we know that you know, movement is going to happen in the next month. We want to participate in it. As I said before, we want to bring in 5 or 6 new players next year. We'd like to bring in players that we can, you know, build on and build with in this year, especially, and not just have them all in one group. So, you know, we're going to be active, open, and selective.
Phil, what do you say to the fans who, you know, saw this trade and didn't feel you got enough assets back? And related to that, these trade exceptions, do you feel you have to use them at this trade deadline? I'm not sure if it extends because of the
They're
salary.
valuable. I mean, people don't understand the trade exception. It's, you know, hocus pocus with the cap stuff, but there's value in it, and it means that there's options that we have out there. That was my first impulse, is that we're not getting back a player of substance with these trades. But you're looking at the financial end of it and our record and where we were at this particular time, and what our future is. It was the right thing to do, and it made sense after sitting on it for 2 or 3 days and looking at the options.
You said this was a mea culpa, but at the same time, you said this is what was best for the business to do it this way. So what, I mean, are you saying that maybe there's something you would have done differently, you could have, or are you sure everything you've done is the right thing?
Well, obviously, I didn't do the right thing in picking the group of guys that were here. A lot of it was, etched in stone. We had guys that were guaranteed contracts, but, in anticipating that we were going to be better, that we were giving hope to our fans that maybe there's a possible playoff opportunity here, that goes on me. That we have to now take responsibility and move forward and make things happen, that also goes on me, and now I have to do the job that I was brought in to do.
Phil, how aggressive are you and Derrick with telling Carmelo or maybe even other players when they just really have to sit out? I guess Iman was saying in Cleveland that they changed his timetable in terms of when he would return because they didn't feel like he was close enough. And then there's obviously Carmelo. How do you guys make that decision, and how much is too much in terms of aggression to get guys to sit out?
Well, Carmelo's is pretty obvious. I think he kind of explained to you that it comes and goes. It's one of those things that I think he used it kind of like a pebble in a shoe, or the princess in a pea, maybe is what another analogy we can make. But, Stoudemire has had a great 20, 25, 30 games for us. He's one of the league leaders in, field goal percentage. To have him out of the lineup has really been difficult for us. And, people always, bring Carmelo up, but also Amari has also been extremely important to lose for us. His is much more obvious. There's, you can look at him, you can look at the swelling in his knee and say that's not possible. But he's getting prepared to come back. Now it's up to us to say, what's the limitations behind what he plays. That's a much more obvious thing. We can start saying, okay, 8-minute shifts are enough for him, and we can go three 8-minute shifts in a night, and that'll be the duration of what he should play if he's going to stay on. Now, on his behalf, when we were, in Chicago and, having a difficult time with injuries, he stepped forward to play. Carmelo sat that game out, JR was out, etc. And we had a very competitive game against the Bulls that night. And I think he took the brunt of it because, since then it's been, he's had to pay the price a little bit for the swelling. And we know consecutive nights are difficult for him. But he's got a great heart, and we appreciate that about his effort.
So based on that sort of thing, do you worry about putting it in a player's hands, given that they do make that decision and then turn it off?
Yeah, I mean, he was insistent on that particular night. We had to let him take his own course in that regard.